Welcome to the Field of 68's Best Bets show, presented by BetRivers and by Underdog Fantasy. Get 100% off your first deposit match up to $100 by using the code FIELD. We are the three-man weave. I am Kai. We got Matt. We got Jim. We're talking Final Four, boys. We got two games, two enticing matchups. Hey, not the Final Four I would choose, but it's the Final Four we get. So we're going to spin it around. We're going to put a bow on it, and we're going to accept it, Jim. We're going to talk about good teams. The top. I would choose top 10 teams because as it stands, we have one top 10 team in the Final Four right now. Not saying FAU couldn't get there. They're fringe. SDSU is a fringe top 10 team as well. But for my preference, I prefer better teams, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fair. I wish there was at least more parity. I almost wish if it, like not having UConn, give me another 5 seed there where it's like coin flips and I don't know who's going to win right now. Mm-hmm. Heavy favorite. I don't like an odds on favorite when we've got 2 games left to play.
Yeah. Hi, Matt. You're back in Chicago.
Hi, Kai. I am with my newly revamped background decor. Hoot, Boca stand up, the Beach Boys, the Pit Bulls and Rottweilers.
Wait, did you
Boca
just
Babes.
throw away the Hawaii one?
Just a quick temporary over the top, Jim. So it's kind of a theme where I have my 2 quasi fan bases here and then my 2 pet teams here. The Valley I had to rep hard with George Ivory this year, and I had a kind of a paradise theme with this third column. So FAU just slots in real nicely right there. It all works out. Man. Very serendipitous, Kai.
It looks great, and we love the FAU Owls, as you guys will see very shortly. Heck, let's just get into it. Let's start off. The first game of the Final Four, the undercard, if you will, is San Diego State and Florida Atlantic, who are both making their program debuts in the Final Four. How exciting. One of these teams will be playing for a national title. The line right now at BetRivers is San Diego State minus 1.5. It is not 2 at BetRivers, unfortunately. Jim, it's 2 elsewhere in the market right now. Both these lines really haven't, I was about to say they haven't really moved in the market, but I'm seeing just a little bit of move on Miami, UConn, a little bit of move on FAU, San Diego State, mostly stand pat, total 131.5. It's going to be a war. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, feels like an under because San Diego State just lives for unders and no one makes threes against them. 17% in the tournament, a ridiculous 5 of 44 in the last 2 games. It just doesn't even make sense. It boggles the mind. I don't care if they're being bear hugged as they shoot. They should be better than 5 of 44. So it spare me the defense is so incredible. Yes, it is, but it shouldn't be 5 of 44. It should be 10 of 44 is even incredible defense. So I'm not fully buying the San Diego State defense is going to continue to hold teams to that level of shooting. FAU finally had a shooting game over 30% last game from deep. That's important. You need to be able to stretch out this defense. If San Diego State can just pack it in on you, like they've been able to do a little bit, you're probably not going to score. They're long, they're physical. They've got a true shot blocker and Mensah at the back line of the defense. It's a really, really tough team to score on if you cannot spread them out. Thankfully, Matt, FAU's got guards to do that. They rotate 7 of them at 4 positions. All of whom can shoot, create, pass to others. And then they got that 2-headed monster at center that I think gives them at least some upside on the glass. Maybe not winning the rebound battle against San Diego State, but they've got some upside there. I definitely lean FAU, man. I just think this team is riding the wave right now. They've got sort of the right makeup to combat this SDSU team, provided they don't shoot frigid from beyond the arc. I see the football stadium note from Pat Taylor in the chat. Not buying it. I don't think there's historical data to actually back that up in recent years. I think it's very anecdotal and feels really severe when it happens, like that Butler UConn title game from, 12 years ago? Mm-hmm. But I still lean towards the under, Matt, not specifically because of the shooting, more because of the pace, more because I think FAU has been a pace taker all year. They'll play sub 60 if you want. They'll play mid 70s if you want. And I think we get another slow game here.
Yeah, it's because they can. Everyone always clings to the which team controls the tempo. Oh, this team's going to slow it down, and thus it favors them. It's easier to slow its team down. All that nonsense. I think FAU's just immune to that. They just play a million different ways because they can, because they're versatile, because they're deep. To make the point you brought up, very, nothing groundbreaking or earth shattering here. But I think the FAU guards are just deeper. I trust them more, even though there's more star power. If you want to throw Matt Bradley in that camp, obviously that star has been tarnished by his recent play, but we all agree he's kind of, he has that cachet. I still think FAU's backcourt and wing corps are, I give a net edge there. I really do. I think that matters.
Not
corpse. What did I say?
You said corpse. We're talking core. Corpse.
Core. Sorry, core. The piece core. The guard core is what I meant to say. They're just better. They're deeper. And I still think people underestimate how good Brian Greenlee is, how good Nick Boyd is. I think Elijah Martin's kind of had his coming out party. Nelly Davis certainly has. Golden to some degree just because he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb next to those guards. But I think every round we go, we're learning about one or two more guys like, wow, this FIU guy is really good. I think Boyd and Greenlee are due for a big game here. I know Trammell and Butler really dictated some of the pressure that the Aztecs put on Creighton last game. I don't think that bothers FAU at all. They've seen kind of a frenetic style of defense. They played FDU. They beat a physical, long, suffocating defense in Tennessee. Kansas State threw some different stuff at them. They had to corral a legit star. I mean, they've kind of been tested all along the way. They've been in close games. I don't know if they can get offensive rebounds at the rate they did against Tennessee, against San Diego State, which is kind of what helped them to stay in that game despite a frigid shooting performance. Like Jim said, I think they are going to have to make somewhere in the low 30s percentage-wise from three. How many they take, I don't really know. But just on a per possession basis, I think they're going to have to make closer to their season average to feel really confident about this. It's going to be tougher to really beat the Aztecs at their true game, as versatile and as fungible as FAU is with their styles.
Yeah, I don't know. I think FAU can beat them at their game because they already played three teams that are kind of physically like San Diego State, with Kansas State, with Memphis, and especially with Tennessee. I think that's the best comp for them. Kind of Tennessee light is San Diego State. So you proved you can go to war with really physical, really athletic teams that should dwarf you in both those categories. And guess what? FAU grabbed like 40% of their offensive rebounds against all those teams. They are tough as nails. They are super deep. We've talked about several times how deep they are. Play 9 guys over 10 minutes per game. That's tough to prepare for. Even with this time in like the last 4 or 5 days, still tough to prepare for a team like FAU. Just so many weapons. I have to think the San Diego State defense, the shot select, there has to be shot regression coming for that 3-point percentage defense. Jim mentioned it. Yes, it is very good. It's been good for years under Brian Dutcher at San Diego State. It is not 17% from the line good, though. I do think there's some regression due. Hey, you can say the balls are too inflated and that's causing it as well. Maybe. I'm not sure I buy that narrative either, though. We talked about San Diego State's shot selection. They love shooting in the mid-range. That's kind of where FAU forces you. It's really hard to score in the inside near the rim. It's hard to score at the 3-point line against FAU. So maybe that plays into San Diego State's hand a little bit, Jim. But I tend to think, though, it's tough to win consistently just shooting mid-range jumpers. And we know how San Diego State's offense can stagnate. My best bet's FAU. We're going to get +1.5 here, Matthew. I think your best bet is that as well. But that's where I'm going with.
Yeah, I'd like to get 2, but doesn't matter. I think I just take money line. It's probably the better bet here. But given we're trying to stick to a -110 tracking system here in our best bets, I'll just take the 1.5. And I'm with you. Let's double it up. Hoot, hoot.
Hoot, hoot, indeed. Pretty hot take. And do you guys ever get tired of trying to prove that you want an argument, that your takes weren't hot enough, that they were right? I got an answer for your problems. Vaulted, VLTED, is a new sports prediction app that turns your opinions into facts. You can store all of your predictions, your hot takes, in your own vault, now and forever. Challenge your friends, keep track of your results, and prove you are, in fact, the smartest guy in the room. Vaulted will also be releasing more than 50 pools over the next 3 months. So download the app at the link below the YouTube channel here. Sign up for your 3-month trial and store your predictions now and forever. That's Vaulted, VLTED. All right, game number 2. Here we go. Miami, UConn. The primetime game, Matthew. UConn down to -5 at BetRivers with some juice, -114. 5.5 everywhere else in the market. And again, has not really moved from that 5.5. The total, 149 at BetRivers. 149.5 is where you're going to find it mostly in the market. What are your thoughts on this game?
I think the over is where I lean, and I think the money coming in on Miami, it doesn't seem like there's a ton, but there is some resistance just based on everyone who you hear talking about this game, I think has crowned UConn the champion already. So to see basically no movement going farther than 5.5 after I said like 2 days ago, I was like, I think this number closes closer to 6.5, 7. It's just money kind of pours in over time, both public and sharp, but that hasn't been the case. So clearly there's some respected opinions for Miami, and I guess there's pretty good evidence to suggest they should be respected. The specific angle I like here, though, Jim, is UConn first half. It was going to be my best bet, but I couldn't abandon my Owls, and I still don't all the way trust UConn, even though they've given us every reason to trust them. Miami's outscored every team they played so far in the tournament by, I think, an average of 10 points per game in the second half. They've been a second half monster. I think part of that is due to the way they've pressured teams. They've caught them off guard, while their defense can be very vanilla and very easy to beat in its base structure, as evidenced by a 104th overall defensive ranking in KenPom. When they kind of turn that switch on, I think that's where they actually cause some havoc, and that's where their offense gets going too, because transition is where they are absolutely lethal. Is UConn susceptible to any of these concerns, though? The way they're playing, the way they've proven they can handle those types of wrinkles and strong coaches in this ride to the Final Four? Man, I think you're really grasping for straws if you're trying to confidently bet Miami here, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going with the over here, Matthew. I think both teams are going to score very efficiently. You mentioned Miami's defense. It's really bad. Even in this run, it's still outside the top 100. You expect teams to really improve their advanced analytical rankings as they beat teams on a neutral site. They've given up more than 1 point per possession in 3 straight games. It's not been pretty for their defense. Only Drake was somebody they were able to hold below that mark. And it kind of was lucky to get there. I don't know. They held them really, really scoreless for like the final 5 minutes. I think no field goals. I'm going with the over. I think UConn scores at will in the post, on the perimeter. Miami surrenders a lot of assists. They have a really low defensive assist rate, 262nd in the country. UConn really moves the ball well. We saw Sanogo beat a bunch of post traps in the first half against Gonzaga. He had 5 assists. I think it was his career high. Ended up with 6 in that game. Jackson's been a monster, 7 assists at least in all 4 tournament games, 10 last time out against Gonzaga. I really like that as an over in terms of tournament props. I just think there's going to be tempo, points. He's clearly got the pedigree for it, plenty of options to pass to. And like I said, Miami's defense allows you to pass. They'll help if they need to. So yeah, I like that. I like the over. I think there's a ton of points. And then from a side, Kai, I just think UConn's rolling, man. They're, by closing line, they're 14-0-1 against the spread, against non-conference competition. Technically 15-0 if you got a decent number. I think it was Buffalo was the one they pushed on. It's absolutely absurd. They are smashing everybody if they're not in the Big East. They had the little lull where teams were helping off Vondre Jackson. They didn't know what to do. Hurley's been very frank, saying, I was all over the refs for that stretch, and I didn't know what to do with Jackson, but we figured that out. We solved it. I believe him. Look what's happening. They're just destroying good teams. They just destroyed a great offense in Gonzaga. I think they can do it again here, Kai. I like UConn on the side, but my best bet is over 149.5.
Yes, sir. And at BetRivers, the line just moved back to 5.5. So somebody was waiting on that UConn -5 to pounce. It's right back to 5.5 there. Yeah, UConn has won by an average of 20 points per game in this tournament. Not since Villanova of was it 2018? Have I seen as much dominance, I think, from a... Yes, Jim?
Gonzaga 2021, I think, smashed everybody.
Okay, Gonzaga as well. And Baylor probably did too. I think Matt and I actually talked about this on the Sirius show. But reminds me of those teams where it's like, all right, they're favorites, of course, but they're smashing teams. They're covering really easily, and it's not really close. And this is the exact team we saw in November in Portland. We thought they'd get back to this level. Little caveats here. I think Jim Larinaga is a better coach than Dan Hurley. No offense to Dan Hurley, but Larinaga is quite the coach. And I think Miami was fortunate to come back and beat Texas after they had a 3% chance of winning per KenPom. I think they were fortunate to come back against Drake when they had an 8% chance of winning when they were down in the second half. But there is some credence given to Larinaga and his in-game adjustments, his ability to coach his team through that. Miami's guards are awesome, of course. Best backcourt left in the tournament. Always gives you a chance to win. I just think if they're not hitting shots, it's going to be hard to score on UConn. They're really good on the perimeter. They force you off the line, and they're really good inside as well. So if Miami's missing tough shots, which they can do, it's going to be hard to win. Also, if he gets in foul trouble, it's also going to be hard to win. Timmy got in foul trouble against UConn, and Gonzaga got crushed. If Omier gets in foul trouble, it's bad news for Miami.
Okay, I saw some people being like, well, Timmy played 32 minutes it wasn't the same. Like he
Right.
left for 4 minutes and then immediately it was like a 15-0 run. He came back and played like the final 12 and it was already out of hand. There's also an emotional aspect to like, oh, our guys got 4 fouls that I don't think you can quantify in just minute counts.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think if Omier goes out, what do they do? I don't see Lawrence holding up against Sonogo.
But I'm going to give Omier credit. I'm done doubting the guy.
Excuse me.
The guy is very good. He can hold his own. I'm going to say he can hold his own against UConn's bigs. But if he's in foul trouble, they're done. I'm actually going to bet on Miami plus 5.5, guys. That's mainly a future hedge for me with UConn. Also, I just kind of want to have some money on him because this team has kind of had a horseshoe up its butt for the last couple of games, and I don't really want to get burned by them again, frankly. I bet against them too many times this tournament. That's the way I'm going with. Final thoughts from either of you on Miami UConn? We'll get to best bets here soon. Recap.
Just closing, I was looking at the historical scoring over under Final Four at NRG Stadium the last 2 times, so 2011 and 2016. I don't put a ton of stock in this, by the way, but I think some people out there are mentioning this because 2011 was the Butler versus UConn disastrous championship game. That was one of the ugliest games of all time. But that actually went 2-1 to the over. Both games, I think, that on Final Four went over, and then 1-2 to the over in 2016. So basically about 3-3, even split. And 4 of the 6 ended up within like 2 or 3 points of the margin. So the lines are sharp. There's no edge really to the unders in these stadiums. And I think while 6 games is a small sample, I think you can basically feel, make the handicap agnostic of the stadium, I guess is what I'd say.
2011 from a KenPom rating perspective and from a seeding perspective, the worst Final Four. This one, the second worst. How fun. Both in Houston. Can't wait to do it. Miami UConn just touched 6 for a second, and BetRivers back down to 5.5. We're getting a little bit of movement out there in the market.
We're playing.
Yeah,
the limits opening on a Wednesday, Kai? Is that what's happening? I don't know.
Before we get to best bets, today's episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play college basketball pick'em, where you can win real cash prizes simply by picking player stats in the weekend's games. Pick'em, all you do is pick whether a player will go higher or lower on Underdog's projected totals. That's points, rebounds, assists, whatever. If you're like me and you think Jaden Ledee has a pretty good chance at having a good rebounding game against FAU, against their 4-man, go ahead, pick his higher rebound prop and hope you win. Cash out, man. You can win 20 times your money on a single game by doing their player props here. Underdog's slick mobile app is easy enough to download and use. Even dummies like Jeff Goodman can figure it out. So go to underdogfantasy.com or download the app and use the code FIELD, that's FIELD, to get 100% deposit match up to $100. Underdog Fantasy. Best bet time. Remind the folks at home. Matthew, you can go first.
FAU plus 1.5.
Also taking FAU plus 1.5. Yeah, money line probably the better play below 2. But we'll stick to the spreads on the show as we've done all year. Jim.
Going with UConn and Miami over 149.5. Think that gets a little faster than 68. I was surprised it's only 68 possessions on KenPom. Miami loves to run. UConn will absolutely run if you are going to. And then efficiency, I think, is very high, particularly on the UConn side. And Miami's offense is going to be good enough to score. I still think Gonzaga should have scored way more than 54. A lot of open looks missed there. Shot quality agrees. Whether that is Bible or not, I don't care. My eyes saw they had some open shots. I think Miami knocks down more of those. I think we get a track meet. So over 149.5.
Love it, fellas. Hey, thank you out there for joining us for our Final Four episode. We are back for a live podcast today at 1:30 on the 3-Man Weave channel. Check that out. It's our 300th episode. So claps for us for making it through 300 episodes without killing each other. That's great. Jim, Matt, and I are Houston bound. We'll be doing our national championship best bet show from Houston. Till then, hey, enjoy the NIT, I suppose, if you're into that sort of thing. I'm not. Go Conference USA, go FAU, and we will see you from Houston this weekend. Cheers.